Good morning and welcome to Datacom LA 2023. I'm excited to welcome you to the City of the Angels for the 11th Datacom LA Conference. This is an exciting time as data is changing the way we analyze and identify solutions for our most pressing issues across the city, the region, and across the world. I'm excited that you are here today to collectively work together on using data to address social challenges, support our business economy, fuel innovation, foster new opportunities for youth seeking tech careers, and help us all move forward together in this digital age. With the necessary precautions, the City of Los Angeles is taking part in the evolution of digital tools. City departments are taking the steps to evaluate and work on artificial intelligence use cases that will improve services delivered to Angelenos and improve city operations. Thank you for inviting me to speak to you today, and congratulations on the continued success of this event. And thank you to all of the speakers and attendees who will share their knowledge and challenge your thinking about how we use data.
Good morning. How's everybody doing? Welcome to Datacon LA at beautiful USC campus and Bovard Auditorium. It's a gorgeous auditorium, and we have an amazing day for you today, and particularly this panel of keynote speakers is going to be amazing. My name is Raphael Basaro. By day, I am a tech marketer and AI aficionado, and by night, I teach. I'm an adjunct professor at UC Annenberg. I teach marketing there. Very pleased to be here, and I wanted to, before we kind of get the keynotes rolling, I have a couple of quick announcements I wanted to make, so make some notes here. So number one, all the panels and tutorials will be at the Sealy G. Mudd building. All the session talks will be at Taper Hall. And all that information will be obviously on the website, dataconla.com/schedule. Lunch will be provided at 12:15 at Founders Park. And this is, take note of this, there is a generative AI tutorial hosted by Databricks, and that's also going to be at Sealy G. Mudd. Now, that's at 1 p.m., and it's limited to the first 100 people that attend, and you need your laptop, and you also need to have Wi-Fi access to be able to do that. It's a very hands-on kind of tutorial, so highly encourage you to sign up for that, get there early so you can partake in it. It's only for the first 100. And then the other important note is that the networking session will start at 4 p.m., and that's also going to be at Founders Park. So big day, lots of activity. So also I wanted to thank the Mayor Bass for her remarks and her commitment to using data for the improvement of the city. So we really appreciate her notes, and we also have the Deputy Mayor, Jean Holm, who will be also in one of the panels today. So our first speaker for the keynote is Raman Randhawa. Dr. Raman Randhawa is the Hillard Professor of Business and Data Science at the USC Marshall School of Business, my alma mater as an MBA as well. He is a Senior Vice Dean of Academic Programs overseeing all undergraduate MS and MBA programs. He holds a Bachelor of Technology from ITT Delhi and a PhD, among other degrees, from Stanford Business School. His research and teaching interests lie in the area of AI, machine learning, business analytics, and business operations. And his keynote will focus on the future of business education and learning in the AI era. So very, very timely indeed. He is also co-founder of a startup called Pathomic. It's an AI-based startup focused on personalized medicine and drug development. Please give a warm welcome to Raman.
Morning. It's really, really nice to be here. I'm really excited. Thank you, Rafa, for that very generous introduction. Welcome to USC. Welcome to LA if you're from other parts of the world. as a data science person, isn't this such an exciting time? I'm just so excited by all the happenings in the data science world. It makes me think about 20 years ago. Yes, I'm old. 20 years ago, I'm not going to belabor the ancient history part, but 20 years ago, I've always been a data geek, data nerd. 20 years ago, statisticians were not really looked upon very nicely. And I think some of you with gray hair are nodding, and you know what I mean. Others, the younger folks are like, what do you mean, right? I mean, data's always been cool. Last 10 years, it's just been fascinating how statistics started becoming data science. Businesses started talking about first business intelligence. Then the word analytics came in. Descriptive analytics became predictive analytics, became prescriptive analytics, right? So analytics has gone from, let's look behind what's happening and we'll think about decisions based on what you're telling me, to, hey, what do you think will happen tomorrow, 5 years down the road? What decisions can we make? And now generative AI has just, AI is everywhere. AI is people who don't know technology data, they're talking about AI. It's just, I'm so excited and happy. There are two things this summer that I did that I really enjoyed. One was I took my daughter to the Taylor Swift concert. That was a lot of fun. But the other was just look at AI, just look at what's going on in AI, all the tools, and see how, as an academic, we can bring it to our students across all eras and generations. So let me, in terms of how we think about the future of learning, future of business education, so that's near and dear to my heart. Let's talk about the workforce, and we have amazing keynote speakers. I was talking to them. You'll learn much more about exactly what's happening ground level, the workforce, how that's changing. But I'll quote, there's a public report by McKinsey. McKinsey does this every few years. They've been looking at AI. There's a report on the economic impact of generative AI. I highly recommend people to look at it, and it has various, lots of data, a lot of detailed analyses. The part that really struck me was the part where they talk about how 60 to 70% of what employees are working on can be done by generative AI. So 60 to 70% of what employees can do can be done by generative AI. Now, this is a very knowledgeable audience, so some of you might be thinking, hey, no, it's 90%. Some of you are like, wait, no, that's too much. But it sounds significant, right? Now, if you think, what are the tasks generative AI can do? As well as humans, there is natural language understanding and logic, right? So those seem to be where we are getting close to human. Social and emotional elements, not so much, right? So this leads to a natural question of how is the workforce changing? What is happening? And that leads to this word of productivity. Everyone's talking about productivity. All Fortune 500 CEOs, about 80% of them, there was a survey, they say efficiency, productivity is where we are headed. Everything's going to be more efficient. You must have heard this phrase somewhere, AI will not replace humans. Humans plus AI humans who use AI will replace those humans who do not. Right? I was trying to find the citation for this, who said this for the first time. I couldn't find. A lot of people say it. So if anyone knows the source, just let me know. I don't know the source. But it's so true, right? It feels, if you think about natural language understanding, the logical reasoning part that generative AI can do, and then the social emotional part that AI cannot do, it's hard to imagine a replacement of a human, but a human plus AI, that the super user, the superhuman, whichever you want to call it, human plus AI is the interface where I believe there is just tremendous value. Which brings us to really think about what does that interface, so if humans are working with AI, what does that mean for education? And as a business school professor, I'm taking business education, but obviously implications are far beyond. And also just learning. What does it mean for people in today's data and age to learn? And I know there are many students, many data science professionals here. how should we think about learning, right? So the first is just what skills do we need in this new age, or it's in many ways, it's not really a new age, it's an accelerated version of items we've been thinking about. So let's talk about skills, and let me divvy them into 3 pieces. The first, cognitive skills, cognitive or technical skills. Data and digital literacy, and that seems to be something right up there in cognitive skills, like understanding what data means. And not just for the audience here, which is super literate in this, but just the average person who you're working with, your team member, you need everybody to understand what data means, where does it come from, what does generative AI mean. It is the garbage in, garbage out with data. We always understood it when you have a data set, but now you have this generative AI which is trained on who knows what data sets. It's producing items that don't look garbage to the human eye, but we all know it could be garbage. Like, how do you... That literacy is something, as educators, we need to teach, so that's really important. Thinking has become even more important beyond digital data literacy. The second item I'll put is thinking. Critical, analytical thinking, creative thinking, really being able to distill what output you're getting into the quality of it. As you know, generative AI, there is no sense of quality of the output. It just spits everything as one uniform thing. So that becomes important. So thinking skills, digital data literacy, very important. Second bucket I would put in are human skills, more interpersonal social skills, leadership, teamwork, empathy. I'll even put in cross-disciplinary empathy, being able to work together. That's a big strength humans have, which at this point I have no, you never know what will happen with AI, but in the near horizon, that's something where humans have the massive advantage. We are a social species, and that's our strength, but that's something we have to work on even harder in this environment. The third thing I'll put is a combination of the two, but it's important enough, I want to pull it out. It's the ethical element, the moral ethical element of AI. I think AI has definitely put that on the horizon. We really need to think about what is good usage of AI, what is bad usage. And I'm really glad the conference has sessions on this. I highly encourage you to go to those. We really need all of that. Pivoting to what schools should be doing, what are we doing here at Marshall, at USC? First, at the highest level, the AI wave, the generative AI did not hit us. We've been thinking about this. We've been thinking about AI for a while. So I'm really happy and glad that at USC, under President Folt's leadership, we have a Frontier of Computing initiative that's been ongoing. And under Dean Garrett at USC Marshall, we are really proud and lucky to be part of it via the part that's dear to my heart is an AI for business undergraduate degree, a 4-year degree, which we launched. The first set of students just came to campus, and classes start there. So it's a 4-year joint with engineering, 4-year degree joint with engineering. Students will be engineers and business students concurrently. They get a joint diploma. We're really excited about that. At USC Marshall, we have the Neely Center for Ethical Leadership and Decision Making, where we have led by an amazing faculty who's going to that center is really geared to help lead the world in terms of ethical thinking, ethical decision-making in technology, in AI. So we're really excited about these ventures, which have been ongoing for some time. Now, over the summer, obviously, as generative AI came to bear, and the implications were getting clear, I had the opportunity to work with a good colleague, a friend of mine, another faculty at Marshall, to work with Marshall faculty, Marshall School of Business faculty, to see how we can bring AI into our education. And one thing I'm excited about for fall is for our full-time MBA program, our data science class will actually have a complete GitHub Copilot next to it. So this is a data science class where historically, it's always been with MBA students, you want to teach them business, you need coding because data has become more and more complex. With GitHub Copilot, teaching them coding becomes trivial, right? I mean, those of you who've used GitHub Copilot, you can just write in the comments whatever you want the code to be, and it spits it out. So we're really excited about that, and we may be the first business school in an MBA program that's doing that. So really excited about that. Very quickly, let me jump X years ahead. I don't know what that X is. This is my personal take on what a future classroom or future learning could look like. Let's take a class in product management, say. I would love to be in a place where, let's say this is a class, and not that all of you need, I mean, many of you are experts in this. People with different backgrounds, some have business, strategy, marketing backgrounds, some of you have a UI, UX background, engineering background. Everyone wants to learn about product management as, let's say, I'm not an expert in this, so I'm not the faculty, someone else is a faculty. They give you a personalized AI mentor who can help you get to 80% of what learning outcomes for that course exist by yourself, at your pace. But then the professor comes in and puts you in cross-disciplinary teams, which really makes product management, and you really learn how to do product management. That 20%, you do that on your time. So that's really what I feel we can get to, and that would be such a value add. So I'm excited about that. Again, who knows, right? 10 years out or next year, right? I mean, that's what really, that's what makes me sleep well at night, sort of knowing that in the morning I'm going to look at the news, maybe some new cool technology will come out. So what does this mean for you all, right? So this is what we are thinking of. I want to close by just talking a little bit about what it means for all of us. I believe we are in an age of unparalleled opportunities to learn. So I'm a professor, so I care a lot about learning. But if you think about Coursera, and there was a time when I was doing the startup, I didn't know deep learning, how to code in TensorFlow, how to code in all of these. I went on Coursera, took classes, and it was so cool. And I think, like, if now I had to do that, I don't have to do Coursera. I don't have to go through like someone talking for hours. I can just go straight into what I need. Isn't that amazing? Like, just as the ability to take whatever skill you have, be able to translate it using these generative AI, the opportunities are amazing. In many ways, education, if you really take a step back from what education means, it's really about, in my mind, like when I did the PhD for 5 years, the key element in the PhD was not the classes I took, it was asking the right question. Like, what is it that I want to study? If you want to do a successful startup, you have to ask the right business question of what you want to solve. It's sort of interesting, ironical that prompt engineering is, salaries are amazing for prompt engineering. What is prompt engineering? Asking the right question. So in some ways, we are coming full circle in education, I feel, to the basics, the bare bones of asking the right question. So I'll end by saying, to all of you, be super users, but also be super learners in today's date and age. It's really, this is the best time to learn, and you all can, the fact that you're here to learn. So I already know you're on this trajectory to be super learners. So really excited for the day for all of you. And once again, I appreciate the opportunity to be here and be able to talk to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Raman, for telling us about those amazing programs. Our next keynote speaker is Boris Shimanovsky, who is ZipRecruiter's Chief Technology Officer, where he leads all engineering and technology functions, including creating scalable systems and sophisticated data, machine learning, and AI practices. Prior to joining ZipRecruiter, Boris was SVP of engineering at Foursquare, and prior to that, he was CTO at Factual. Boris holds a master's in computer science from UCLA, but we're not going to hold that against him. So please give Boris a warm Trojan welcome.
Hi, everyone. I didn't know we were still at odds, UCLA and USC. Hi, I'm Boris. Hey, welcome, data people. So when the organizers of this event asked me to speak, I was like, why me? I don't know anything about generative AI, and I'm not actually much of a public speaker at all. Don't really volunteer for these things. But they had a set of questions. People are wondering what it's like to get a job and work in the data world these days, and what is the working world becoming. And I can tell you, as an old guy who has been around for thousands of years now in this industry, or in internet years, it's thousands of years, we don't know anything. We have no idea what's going to happen next. And the only thing that I think I've learned is humility, to know that we're just not sure what's about to happen. I think a lot of the things that are happening today were not things that very many people were predicting 10 years ago. And so, the kinds of things that they thought AI would replace were factory jobs and things like that. They didn't think that they would be writing TV scripts and submitting legal briefs, possibly badly, but landing or getting lawyers disbarred, but who use that blindly. But anyway, so listen to us, but maybe don't listen to us, because what do we know? So the questions I was asked is, what's happening in the job market? How is generative AI affecting that? And what are the skills that people need to succeed in the world of working with data today? And so I have 4 micro talks, just trying to answer those questions as best I can. So what's happening in the job market? So I work at ZipRecruiter, which is a job site, and so we have a little bit of visibility into what's going on in the world. In some ways, they're sort of leading indicators. All the hot takes that you're about to hear are mine and not my employer's, so disclaimers. The Fed has this kind of weird dual mandate that doesn't totally make sense, which is keep employment high and also keep prices under control, right? And so lately they've been raising interest rates because they're trying to keep prices under control. You can see that curve at the very end bending downward. Those are costs, and that is certainly affecting employment. And so, for example, software engineer job postings are down something like 50% since last year. So that's a pretty significant change. Other kinds of job postings are also declining. Lots of companies in our industries have posted various numbers to that effect. And so we also are able, and this is actually like hot off the presses, or it's not even off the presses. This is a survey that we're still, I think, in the midst of running. But we're surveying employers today, and what's really interesting is that 48% have said that AI has already replaced jobs in their organization. So I know we talk a lot about augmentation of work, but I think that it's also natural to consider that at least some companies are thinking about how to hire fewer workers as a way to reduce costs. So it does appear to already be happening, at least according to surveys. And what's also interesting is that the kind of employees that people are seeking are changing a little bit as well. So this is a really surprising number, because this includes like small businesses and enterprises that are not technology companies, saying that 50%, 57% are hiring people right now with AI skills. And so as I said, I'm very old. Lots of people were predicting things. I don't think that very many people thought that software engineering would be on the list of jobs that would be significantly affected by AI. But now they're talking about that, and the professor before me mentioned GitHub Copilot. Like, things like that are making software engineering at least augmented. So how do you prepare for a data career when machines can write code for you, right? So I hear that a lot of you are, or maybe more than half of you are students or early career, and so I wanted to share a tidbit of what we were talking about with our intern class, which actually just wrapped up last week. And so we were talking about sort of skills and how to behave. And one of my observations was that I think that the traditional pipeline for how sort of early career people become senior people in this industry is evaporating, or at the very least changing, right? And so when you're the new person at the company, they're like, okay, write this code, automate this thing, build functions, write queries, whatever it is that you do in your role. And that's how you kind of practice and you watch senior people work and you become more senior. But a lot of that sort of boilerplate code, automation, writing a function just based on a description of what it does, that's stuff that a machine is going to do for you. And so the traditional path to becoming senior is changing. And so one of the skills that we talked about as being most important is system design skills. So we are starting to evaluate people much earlier in their sort of seniority ladder for system design specifically. Because kind of knowing how to put together a system is where the AI is, I think, what do I know, but I think not going to do that for you as well. And then maybe a little bit counterintuitively, the other thing that we talked a lot about is knowing the fundamentals really well, right? So knowing like the internals of how computers work, knowing how memory works, understanding some of the basic algorithms, because if you can imagine two people telling an AI, hey, go build me this thing, and one of them knows how to phrase the question, and I don't mean prompt engineering, I just ask the thing that you described, maybe the system you designed, but the thing that you described for the system to build for you, if you could describe it in a way that makes it 10 times cheaper or 10 times faster, that is a real advantage. And the best way to do that is to understand the fundamentals of how these systems work and just sort of have an intuitive knowledge and intuition about how to structure these things to make them cheap. Because you still have a scale issue, and imagine paying 20 cents a pop right now for not ChatGPT, but like OpenAI to do something for you. 20 cents a pop, if you can make something an order of magnitude cheaper, that could be a lot of money. All right, so thinking more broadly, all of us, regardless of what stage we are in our careers, what are the skills that we need? So this is actually a screenshot from our own applicant, it's actually our applicant tracking system. And when we do interview feedback, these are like the two traits that are at the top of the list: scrappiness and mathiness. So what do those mean? So in this space, it's not just having learned the technique, right? Knowing a language, knowing a particular framework, maybe you have Spark expertise or something like that. But it's that sort of will to kind of break through, the ability to go off and do research and answer questions and just sort of keep going and not be blocked. So, the way that we evaluate for that is sort of elaborate, but just looking at how people unblock themselves. And mathiness is really about knowing that, especially in big data, you shouldn't look at all of it, right? That's the number one. Well, I think that there are probably 3 secrets to big data: hashing, sorting, and not looking at all of it. That's it. I don't know how many classes you guys can skip now, but that's that ability to kind of estimate, know that you can sample, know that if I want to count up the number of unique things in a set, but I can be slightly wrong, a hyperlog would do that for me, and it's way cheaper to keep a data structure like that running and in memory than to maintain a set of trillions of things or billions of things. So we look at things like that. And the other is really the ability to engage with other functions, particularly non-technical functions. So especially in data and especially in AI, there are a lot of conversations that if you're in the working world or in the corporate world, you have to engage with legal and compliance and security and business stakeholders, and knowing how to interact with those people and knowing how to kind of bridge those gaps is really, really important. So for example, when you're talking with lawyers and they are showing you some, by the way, there's like a massive patchwork of laws on things like privacy and compliance that, depending on the state, are actually very hard to interact with. And some of them will say things that, if taken literally, are just impossible, right? Like, it must never be possible to decrypt this data. Well, I don't know, quantum, so you have literal-minded engineers who are like, well, quantum computers might be able to do that. And so then you're like, well, I guess we can do nothing. And so those kinds of reasonableness conversations or like, what do you think this means, and interpretation are really difficult and an important skill to be able to engage with non-technical people and kind of take an intent and translate it into a technical implementation. Okay, next micro talk. So I mentioned a little bit about security and compliance and legal, but one of the other things that I think is really important to think about is fairness, and the professor earlier mentioned ethics. I think that this is a thing that we're all thinking a lot about in the corporate world, and I'm sure in the academic world as well. And so there are all kinds of challenges in this space, and I think that the first thing that we all have to realize is that when we hand a bunch of data to a model, it's going to, it's going to learn from whatever that data is, whatever those labels are being driven by, and a lot of those labels are being driven by human biases. So this is, by the way, a real headline where Amazon had to suspend an internal program that they were using to sort resumes because it had learned that males were more desirable for technical roles. Who knows why exactly it learned that, but could have just been a poorly implemented project, or they didn't do the necessary things to try to mitigate that. And so so they had to stop, but it's actually an important lesson, right? I think that we think a lot about not being in the headlines, sure, but also we want our systems to be fair, and we want it to positively impact society. Incidentally, where I work, we don't screen resumes on this basis, but we do actually still put a lot of effort into making our models fair, and so that means actually that one of the things that we do is we take all of the words and we make them gender neutral. So if something says waitress, we convert it to waiter, and before it goes in as a feature into our models. So things like that, but there are many. And so I think a lot about, and I hope you all do too, about sort of this landscape that we're going into, right? So sure, there are the obvious sort of ethical questions around, are the things that we're building, positively impacting society? But where is the data coming from? What is the data that we're using to train our systems? So, ChatGPT is trained off of content from the internet, which is famously not racist and 100% truthful. And so if you think about that, and then you build and by the way, I think all of the large language models have these challenges, and the companies are working really hard to overcome that. But at the end of the day, it's based on information that humanity has provided to these systems, and so it absorbs a lot of the same biases that humanity has. which also sort of brings in questions like, when is it the right time to release a model or a new capability into society? So, like, let's say that you have self-driving cars, right? And maybe today they're already considered to be safer than human drivers, on a miles-driven basis. I think that's already been shown, and but it's actually quite hard to get them deployed into the world, because if you have a single driver like a single human driver who does something bad, that's just one person and you're mad at them. But if you have a company build an AI driving, it's the collective, right? So we don't judge the human collective against the AI or like the company collective. We judge individuals on the human side and companies on the company side. And so sometimes you can actually have less harm being provided by the company, but it's still not ready for prime time. And so the bar is kind of moving and different, but we have these really difficult challenges to think about. So that kind of awareness of these systems and empathy, I think are quite important to think about when we use data, when we analyze it, and when we build these models. And so that's kind of my set of tiny talks. I will say this: the one thing that I think a lot about is like what is maybe the one essential skill, and maybe I've just thought of a second one, so bear with me. But like the one essential skill or trait that really sets us up for success is one, like I think it's really important that we are the kind of people who keep learning, right? I think the people who succeed in this industry, because it changes so fast, are the ones who are willing to keep learning, because none of us know what's coming, and so you have to be prepared to adapt. So, thank you.
Thank you so much, Boris, for a very insightful presentation. Scrappiness and mathiness, I'm not going to forget that. So it's good stuff. So our next keynote speaker is Yves Bergquist. He is a data scientist and AI researcher. Also, he is the co-founder and CEO of Corto AI, which is an AI startup developing AI tools to make stories and audiences computable through DNA analysis of narratives, which is interesting because I teach a storytelling class, so he sounds like he's going to be a guest speaker in my class for sure. You probably know him though from his work with the ETC, which is what? It's the USC's Entertainment Technology Center, so he's the director of AI in the Media project. So the ETC brings together all the Hollywood studios as well as all the large tech companies such as Microsoft, Amazon, and Google to essentially discuss AI-related issues. And as part of the ETC, which again is funded by the studios, Yves has taken an industry-wide lead in designing and developing AI and machine learning applications for the entire entertainment industry. Most recently, the ETC hosted a large AI conference at the Cinematic Arts School, which was amazing, so very good event. So please give a warm welcome to Yves.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Good morning. I'm going to try to talk about AI in media and not get fired. So as was mentioned, I run an AI R&D lab at USC that's funded by, at the School of Cinematic Arts, that's funded by all the Hollywood studios, and I have a company called Corto. We build AI applications that can watch media content and make recommendations for who that content is for based on the DNA of the content. You're going to hear a lot about AI today, so I'd like to do a little bit of house cleaning. There's just a tremendous amount of misunderstanding and, frankly, garbage about artificial intelligence these days. And so I thought I'd kind of give you my thoughts about what AI is and isn't, and what's going on right now, and how relevant it is to our life, your future. Looked at a lot of definitions about AI, and the best one was the one from Shane Legg, the co-founder of DeepMind. Artificial intelligence describes the optimal behavior of agents in unknown computable environments. And why is that? Important? Well, this definition puts emphasis on two elements of AI that I think are really, really critical. One is the agency. If an application does not have agency, it's probably a machine learning application. It's not an AI application. Now, obviously, generative AI models have agency. They create, they generate some output. So they qualify as AI. The second thing, maybe the most important thing is, and sorry, this was not very well translated from Keynote to PowerPoint, but the keyword, the operative word is computable environments. And this is the notion that AI applications have some form of knowledge representation ability to abstract low-level data into knowledge. It's really interesting to sort of look at human intelligence and synthetic intelligence side by side. And when you look at it, you see that the stuff that we're very far from substantial machine intelligence. So we can divide intelligence in 4 layers. The first layer is the perception of the environment, and here humans outperform. And by the way, humans outperform machines in 3 out of the 4 layers. All the layers except learning. So the first layer is how to perceive the environment. Humans do that very well, much better than machines. We're able to represent knowledge and data about the environment that is incomplete or ambiguous. And machines, as you know, if you're a data scientist, the data has to be clean. It's a very labor-intensive process. The second layer is representing knowledge. Right? This is something that humans also do very well based on ambiguous and subjective data, where machines have to be fed explicitly contextual knowledge about the world. The third layer is learning, and this is where machines outperform humans in the sense that machines can learn from just an enormous amount of data. And the fourth layer is reasoning and abstraction. Right? So how do you abstract certain patterns, certain data into higher level symbols? Right? It's something that machines cannot do at the moment. Real quick, this is, I hope I'll get my presentation will be available, because I don't want to spend too much time on this. But basically, you're looking at where generative AI is in sort of the complexity matrix. It's really very much in the machine learning domain, a little bit in the knowledge representation domain. But you can see, right, there's just a lot of other areas of AI where generative AI is not weighted, and AI as a whole is not weighted, right? So the things that we spend a lot of time thinking about at ETC is not just the technology, but the drags on the technology, right? What are the bottlenecks of the technology? And one thing I really want to impress upon all of you today is more often than not, the bottleneck in deployment of AI in industry, which is what we do at ETC, is not the technology, capability. It's the organization, it's the culture, it's the people, right? And so as you hear a lot about AI in your talks today, I really highly encourage you to focus on all the things that are not the technology, because that's where the failure points are. And so here, we've identified 4 drags on artificial intelligence deployment in industry. First, it's really expensive. And it's not really entirely clear to me that we can run a ChatGPT prompt in a cost-effective manner unless those models get reduced tremendously. It costs an enormous amount to train the models. It costs an enormous amount to operate the models. It's not really clear that Midjourney, Stability AI, and companies like OpenAI are operating at a profit. The second is legal and ethical. There's really going to be a lot of legal. It's the legality of training on those data set is not very clear. The regulatory environment is going to get a lot tighter for AI in the next few months and the next few years. Security is a really big concern, right? When you upload your own data into third-party models, and obviously the most important, the one that we spend a lot more time thinking about and addressing is the organizational slot, right? We're really trying, when you're deploying AI in enterprise, we're really trying to operate a 23rd century technology into a 19th century organizational model. And so, again, as you hear about AI deployment in industry, remember that it's always more complicated than it sounds. It's always more complicated than what people make it sound. And the people who are going to really rule the world in the next few months and next few years are those who can understand the intersection of the data and the technology and the organization and the culture and the people. Because more often than not, that's where it fails. And I've been doing it for 12 years and I've failed miserably because of that. Rarely because I've failed more because of the organization and the people than because of the technology. Bottom line, right? So this pretty much speaks for itself. Like, the implementation of the technology is where the technology fails. So this is, there's obviously a lot of talk about AI in the media industry, and obviously I can't comment on the strikes and all that stuff. But we've seen a few interesting things happen in the past few years. I've been doing this for 7 years, so this, AI is definitely not a new concern for the media industry. It's been going on for many years. Where we've seen it deployed very successfully is, we're seeing a lot of young directors and writers, especially here at USC, use ChatGPT as a creative assistant. It's fairly limited, and it's a bit of a party trick, but it's significant. Lots of previs, storyboarding, lookbooks using Midjourney and Stability AI. Big promise, in development of media content. We don't really see a lot of AI making a big dent into how the workflows are happening. But in production, post-production, we're seeing a lot of changes, right? So virtual production is a big thing. Neural radiance fields, are a big thing in virtual production. Simulcam, a lot of information curation around the production process. It's making a big difference in post-production, right? So everything, machine translation and dubbing, voice synthesis, upscaling, de-aging, re-aging. A really interesting use case is facial replacement technology, AKA deepfakes for documentaries. Instead of blurring the face, they replace the face and makes it more cinematic. I highly encourage you to watch Welcome to Chechnya, the documentary. I think it's on HBO Max. And then, obviously all the stuff that you've seen around, text to video, video to video, stuff like that. That stuff's just really not ready. I mean, it's cool, it's cute, but it's nowhere near the capability that even the companies themselves are telling us are present. The other issue with the media industry is that even though they have a lot of content, as much content as they have, each studio individually really doesn't have enough training data to create a foundation model. So where we think the big change will happen is that artificial intelligence is going to impact the media industry. It is going to impact the mainstream, Hollywood-type media industry. a little bit. But where we think is going to make the biggest difference is in giving near Hollywood production capabilities to social content creators. There's only 24 hours in a day. The market for the demand for entertainment and for media content is stable. It's never going to grow. There's never going to be more than 24 hours in a day. The supply of content is exploding, right? And so if you have young kids like me, you know that they'll spend more time on TikTok and YouTube than on Netflix or Disney Plus, right? And that is the reality of the media market today. And generative AI eruption into the media market is going to affect the ability of these social content creators to create more Hollywood-like content. It is not going to be Hollywood quality, but it is going to be more Hollywood-like content, and it's eating more and more of the market share of Hollywood, which we think the future of Hollywood and large mainstream media creation is around immersive multi-platform entertainment. So this is sort of the ability to create very immersive stories across, AR, VR, linear, TV, video games is really critical, and all the technology infrastructure supporting that is becoming very, very hot. Wow. I do not recommend you just export from Keynote to PowerPoint, because this is really not how this is meaningless. All right, what this means is, what this should mean, what you should see there, is that all of the attention is being put on the impact of generative AI in the media industry, where the main question of the media industry and where AI can make the biggest difference is still today what it was 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 2 years ago. What kind of content do we make? What kind of audience segments? That's the big question. That is the billion-dollar question. Sure, generative AI can optimize some workflows and make production and post-production more effective. But at the end of the day, the really, really big question is what content do we make for what audience segments? And this is an area where we put a lot of efforts and where my startup is positioned. And this is an area that's really, really interesting and very near and dear to my heart, because it's an area that really has to do with how do you insert the technical process and the artificial intelligence process into the creative process. And so one thing that I wanted to close on with you is still, again, the intersection of data and people, of AI and people, is the hottest area today. It is going to be the hottest area for a very long time. And so if you're technical, trying to understand, trying to get a sense of the business problems that your skills are solving, right? Because whoever manages that connection between business organization and the data organization will rule the world. And we're not going into a world of data-driven decisions. We're going into a world of data-informed decision. And so the ability to manage that human-machine interface is really, really critical. And so I highly, highly recommend all of you to think in those terms. Thank you.
Yves, thank you for those comments and a very holistic approach to AI. Very fascinating. Our next keynote speaker is Reza Rassool. Reza is a fellow at Real Networks, which is I'm actually been a big fan of that company for many years, probably before some of your times here. Since joining Real in 2016, he has helped guide the technology investments that are pivoting Real Networks from its historical streaming media roots to becoming a leader in AI. And specifically, some of those areas include computer vision and natural language programming. Reza has earned a technical Oscar and Emmy Awards for his pioneering innovations, ranging from digital movie editing systems, the world's first video-on-demand server, and bionic eyes, which I could use. And in addition, he holds 67 patents. He has had 2 startup career exits to Google. It's a lot. And so anyway, with that, let's warmly welcome Reza.
Hi, everybody. Raphael, thanks for the intro. How are you all doing? I'm the last of the keynote speakers, so hopefully you're not falling asleep yet. Yes, my name's Reza Rassool, but I want to make some changes. I hope this is not a bait and switch. I'm no longer CTO of Real Networks. I'm now a fellow of Real Networks. What does that mean? It's just an alum. It's an unpaid position. In the intervening time since I left there, I've now become CTO of BusinessWire, a Berkshire Hathaway corporation. But you know, AI is moving so fast. My talk title, when I signed up for this keynote, was how generative AI will change your career. Well, you can see what it's done to my career. I thought I'd actually go bigger and retitle it, How AI Will Change the Very Nature of Employment. And specifically, practically, what can you do about it? What can you do about it? So, in the time between the two jobs, it was 2 weeks, between leaving Real Networks and starting at BusinessWire, I formed an international developer community with the mission of democratizing AI. It's called Kwaai, K-W-A-A-I. Hit me up later to find out what the name means. But so I didn't get my honey-do list done in the meantime. I set up this community, and that's what I want to talk to you about today. This isn't opinions endorsed by either my former or current employer, but I do have their permission to, in addition to my day job, run this industry association. Okay, so as you heard from the other speakers, generative AI actually represents a massive leap forward for society and all of us. You know, it's set to transform the very nature of our work. Large language models, in fact, allow us all to stand on the shoulders of prior generations. It's reminiscent of the advances humanity made even when writing was invented. That transformed the way in which wisdom got handed down from previous generations. Prior to that, it was through an oral tradition. And then think about how this progressed when that became digital and the internet came along. We could transmit that wisdom a lot faster. LLMs, large language models, just accelerate that even more. So the optimists, and the optimist in me, believes that generative AI will raise all boats. Macroeconomists, even in this institution, will say, hey, don't worry, the pie will get larger. There's a spectrum of opinions. You've probably heard Jan LeCun. He's an AI optimist, thinking, don't worry, it's going to raise all boats. Then you've got the other extreme, Yurievo, the author of Homo Deus. No, he's got a very pessimistic view. He believes that large language models have actually hacked the very operating system of humans and will lead us down a very dystopian path. So what could possibly go wrong? The skeptics would counter the macroeconomists and say, these technical advances, AI included, accelerate the monopolization of the economy, of wealth, and it further grows the wealth gap between the rich and the poor. When we look at AI, we see it controlled by maybe a half a dozen corporations. An oligopoly is forming that is typically very dangerous for economies. We know historically monopolies lead to fragility and brittleness of the economy. In fact, in the board game Monopoly, when one player owns all of the wealth, what happens? It's game over. And we don't want that for our economy. We don't want that for society, do we? Well, do we? No. I thought I was in the wrong place, the wrong audience, to ask that question. But look, this isn't a rail against capitalism. Even though the Quai white paper is called the Quai Manifesto, this isn't a rail against capitalism. Other people can do that. This isn't a neo-Luddite knee-jerk reaction to say, hey, let's stop AI. Nor is this a clickbaity AI doomer warning about the existential threat that AI represents. No, I think that is a distraction from the clear and present danger. The clear and present danger is the threat to the very nature of employment. That sort of deal that we have with our employers. Hey, I'm going to give you my skills for a time, but when I leave the job, you don't still have my skills. That's mine to take on. That thing is playing out right now in Hollywood, right in this town, in the actors and the writers' strike. And it's going to play out in every single job. Every single job where a model can be trained on your work output. If that model is owned by your employer, your very value, your work, your ability, your employability is under threat. So it's the thesis of Quai, the organization, that the landscape, the battleground on which this is playing out in co-pilots, in personal assistants, in digital twins, it's very important that you own your own co-pilot. It's your tools of the trade. If you don't own it, you're actually giving up the pilot seat. So it's a clear and present danger. Look, it's a threat to businesses as well. Monopolization means that small, medium businesses can't play. They all have to pay the extra cloud tax on their business. The SaaS providers of AI are eyeing the recurring revenues they're going to receive. The other threats we can talk about, and these are just a few of them. AI in its current incarnation has an awful carbon footprint and is really just unsustainable. So the Quai mission is to democratize AI. How do we do that? Well, we do it on 3 fronts. Before I go into that, maybe a generation ago, the industry was in a similar fragile situation where technology was being monopolized. It was actually in the server operating system space where what were your choices? You had Windows NT, you had a number of proprietary Unix operating systems. And then along comes Linux, a grassroots developer organization that says, no, we're going to create a better operating system that is open source. And now it's the dominant operating system. Not that it's a free-for-all, not that it's a massive giveaway. There were wealthy companies built on top of it. Red Hat, the first billion-dollar company built on top of open source. So we aim to democratize AI, build an international developer community, a think tank. It'll have open source outputs, 3 broad categories. Tools. It'll create tools to allow you to train your own co-pilot, one that you can own, one that you can operate yourself, maybe run on locally on your own mobile device. It'll also make progress in the area of AI fundamentals. It turns out it's the very inefficiencies of the existing AI infrastructure that actually perpetuates the moat around existing AI. It makes it expensive. It means that only the wealthiest, deep-pocketed companies can indulge in the large language model training. So we need to make progress on the fundamentals, and that is the perceptron. It hasn't changed its design since 1940 when it was first invented. The sort of structures and methodologies and frameworks we have in neural networks are really, really poor. Neural networks are actually slow to converge. They need millions of samples. You have to train in one instance and run inference in another instance. But this 2-pound biological computer that you all carry around with you can learn and think concurrently in the same instance and can train on much less data than a computer can. So, hey, I think we can do better. And then so the two directions, tools and fundamentals, represent technical tracks. There is a policy track as well. So it's a technical think tank and a policy think tank. Policy needs to go step by step, hand in glove with technology. So what do those policies mean? It's the very language that should go into employment agreements that anticipate AI. How are the rights of those co-pilots that you've maybe trained on the job? How are they apportioned between employer and employee? What are the rights that you grant back to your employer to still have some of your skills after you've left the job? How are those residuals paid back to you? Hey, that's an argument that should be going on in Hollywood right now. Yves, I'm sure you're right on it. The GPL, the licensing agreement, there needs to be a GPL for training data for repositories to say, hey, I want you to extract the embeddings from this, but I'm still holding on to the data. So that's a whole big subject. And then nutrition facts for models that actually help give transparency for AI models to say, hey, this is the scope of training data that it was trained on, and here's the accuracy of the model, here's the bias in the model. We don't know that, and so without those certified nutrition facts coming maybe from an industry body, we are running blind. So it's a club. Membership has its privileges. That's my system diagram here of the ecosystem. At the top, enterprises can become members. They pay a fee. Many industry bodies are set up like that. And so depending on the tier of membership, will determine what level of access they have to the output, whether they can in fact direct or even commission new projects within the lab. Volunteers, please join. But also institutions, software houses, other labs should join, and they can contribute their smarts and come back even smarter and get fame and glory. There's enough to go around. Consumers should have access to the outputs of the lab for free, for non-commercial use. For commercial use, they can seek a license. So it's a call to action. Join the movement. Don't just complain and write a blog post about the dangers of AI. Organize, join up, sign up, go to kwai.ai. So who are we looking for? You want to be a lab member, you're an AI rock star, you're a data scientist, you're an ML developer. Maybe you're just someone that's really concerned about it. Maybe you've got marketing skills, you can help us. Maybe you can spread the word. You're typically high energy and you're curious and you're concerned, but you're siloed in your current organization. You're itching to contribute to an international development, and a movement and make a difference rather than being passive and wringing your hands and fretting about the anxiety that you feel about AI. So we're looking for people that can contribute at least 8 hours a month. Wow, that's not a lot. That's joining a weekly call. That's a quarterly summit that might be a day long. Maybe the annual summit's 2 days. Averages out 8 hours a month. If you can contribute that, join up. And if you can contribute more, that's fantastic. Look, you can find out about me and the president on LinkedIn. Raphael gave me a good introduction. Why not come to the Friday calls, 10 a.m.? We'd love to see you there. We've developed an advisory board, but we're growing that advisory board. I think there are going to be many more people on the advisory board. And join the movement. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Reza. That was amazing. Thank you for those closing remarks. Own your co-pilot and volunteer at Kauai. Those are my 2 takeaways. So that's the end of the keynote program. Just a quick reminder, so all the panels that are following and the tutorials are going to be at the CLG Mud building, and all the session talks will be at Taper Hall. So you can start to kind of decide where you want to go for your respective ones. Lunch is at 12:30. The tutorial that I mentioned before with Databricks is at 1 p.m. That one's going to be at Silly Mud. And yeah, bring your laptop and have a great day. Thank you for being here.